Hello, my mystical friends. Step inside the Oracle Parlor. Grab a nice cup of tea and get cozy with me, your host, Fantasma Witch. Let us go on a journey of all things magical, mystical, paranormal, ghostly, psychic, as we discuss both my stories as well as the stories of guests where we can share in this beautiful parlor space our experiences, our beliefs, and our ideas without judgment. Welcome. Cozy up. It's time to sip the magical tea. Hello, my mystical friends. Welcome back to the Oracle Parlor podcast. And today we are going back to talking about dreams, but this time we're going to be talking about visitations and communications in our dreams. So, as always, I have to start off with my usual disclaimer. The following is based off of my personal experiences and my current beliefs. I am not here to convince you that I have these experiences or to make you believe what I believe, but to simply share them with you. And my beliefs may change from when I record this episode, and that's completely normal. So, like always, I'm going to do my best to include any references in the episode descriptions for anybody who's interested. So, the other thing is, if you have your own story that you would like to share, whether it's paranormal, ghosty, dream, psychic, witchy, if you want to send that to me, maybe have a chance of having it read on the podcast, please, I would love to read your stories. You can email me at oracleparlorpod@gmail.com. So yeah, we're back to discussing dreams. And last time we talked about premonitions, but this time we're talking about communication. And when we're talking about communication, I'm not just talking about spirits of those who have passed. I mean, this could be with people who are still living, and we do all this through our dreamscape. Because, I have a belief that our dreams are definitely reflections of our subconscious mind, and that they help us to process our emotions, our memories. But sometimes, and this is what I believe, sometimes dreams are more than that. And it's funny because in my experience, with dream premonitions and dream journeying, which is another topic we'll talk about another time, but also dream communication, the dreams take on a different vibe. That's the best way to describe it. They take on a different quote unquote vibe compared to a normal or typical dream. And I have been paying attention to my dreams and journaling my dreams ever since I was a kid. I have always been fascinated with dreams. I've always been fascinated with diving into what dreams mean. And I still have a lot of my books on dream encyclopedias from when I was a kid because I was just so into it. And so, because I've had this experience of really paying attention to my dreams for a long period of time, I've started to pick up on these really subtle differences within my dreams of whether or not there's something more to the dream than just my subconscious mind trying to communicate with me. So this is absolutely something anyone can do. I really want to be clear when it comes to dream work, anybody can do it. Even if you're the type of person that's like, well, I don't remember my dreams. You can absolutely start working towards remembering dream recall and starting to notice these really minor differences in your dreams. It just takes time and it takes real discernment and practice. And that's something, if you're interested, shameless plug here, you can always book a one-on-one consultation with me and we can dive deeper into it. So, for me personally, when I experience communication in a dream, it's very different than when I'm talking to just another part of my subconscious. Because in a dream, when that subconscious person, that's again, it's just a part of me, is in the dream, it's almost like they are playing a character or playing a role. And it kind of requires lucidity. Again, another topic we can dive into later. But to be lucid in a dream is to simply become aware that you're actively dreaming. It's your brain switches from I'm plugged into the subconscious only and I'm not consciously aware of this being a dream to, oh, I'm still in the subconscious, but now I am plugged in consciously as well. And so being able to tell the difference between the dream character, which is just a subconscious piece of you that's playing a role, versus this is somebody else that I'm communicating with, whether that person is in spirit or that person is visiting. And I know that may sound kind of weird right now because I know a lot of people have heard of um, visitations from spirits who have passed, but it's a lot less common, I feel personally, in my experience. I don't hear a lot of people talking about being visited or going to someone else's dream. And this is absolutely something that can happen, which we'll get into in a moment. But sometimes when I become lucid in my dreams, I may turn to a person that's in my dream. And usually this is a person that I know or knew at one point in my life. And while I am lucid, I will ask them, are you the real person or are you just a part of the dream? And they will often respond, and this is what's really interesting. They will respond with either, oh, I'm just a part of you. Oh, I'm just part of the dream. Like it's kind of like a, oh yeah, duh, like obviously. Um, and then, if I'm not already pretty aware that I'm dreaming, it's very clear then. However, on occasion, when I become lucid and the dream feels more vivid, which is in the case of what happens if I'm journeying, which again, we'll talk about that in a different episode. But when I'm not actually in my subconscious, but I'm maybe in the astral, if I ask someone in my dream the question of, are you a real person? Are you a part of my dream? The dream person will actually become really confused and they get really matter of fact of being a real person, a real entity, and they don't understand the question that I'm asking, and they don't, I don't want to say they don't like it, but they're just sort of like, why are you asking? That's a silly question. It's almost like if you were in the waking world and somebody turned to you and asked you, are you in my dream? And you're just like, why? No, obviously not, right? That's what can happen if you are engaging with someone or something outside of your consciousness, outside of yourself, which is really interesting when it happens because it doesn't happen all the time, at least for me. For some people, they may be more actively engaged in doing like dream journeying to talk to outside spirits. But when I become aware that it's happening, it's always really interesting. And this actually happened one time where I was dreaming of a beautiful modern home with a uh, kind of like a Japanese tea room nestled in a lovely Japanese garden. And my partner was in the dream with me, and we were acting out a life in the home. Like we were just, in the garden, hanging out, walking around, having a casual conversation. And then suddenly, out of nowhere, I became extremely lucid and I realized I was in a dream. So I turned to my partner because the dream felt, again, it didn't feel exactly like a dream. It felt like it had this different vibe to it. And so when I say this, I mean sometimes it's more vivid in color, sometimes it feels too real, sometimes it's like dreams tend to be very like, okay, this is going to sound weird, gooey. They're flexible. They're changeable. It's hard to maintain lucidity because everything is very liquidy and changeable and flexible within them. But when I became lucid in this particular dream, I was like, wow, it really feels like I'm in this garden. Like it doesn't feel like I'm in a dream. It feels like I'm in a garden. And so this is when I turned to my partner and I said, are you really my partner? Like, are you really here in my dream? And my partner actually responded, yeah, of course I'm really here. Why? And I said to my partner, you're in my dream. But then my partner said, no, wait, you're in my dream, as if my partner had just also become lucid and was aware that they were dreaming. And the next day, I wake up and I'm still very, very, very aware of this dream. It is extremely fresh in my mind. And so I don't like like most things when it comes to the paranormal or anything psychic wise, I don't really let my partner in on what's happening. I always ask questions first without any kind of lead. And so I asked my partner like, "Hey, how'd you sleep? Did you have any dreams?" Because my partner typically does not. And for the first time like in a while, they said, "You know what? I did have a dream." And I was like, "Oh, really? What was your dream about?" And, trying not to seem too interested. And my partner said, "I don't really remember most of it, but all I remember is that you were in my dream and there was like a really cool looking house, but I don't remember the details." And I just lost it because I said, "You're not going to believe this." We shared a dream. And that was the first time I had an experience of uh, visiting someone else's dream or someone else visiting my dream. It's kind of hard to say if it was my dream or their dream. At this point, the lines are blurred. But this was like really the first time outside of my family where I had this experience. Because, if you've listened to previous episodes, I've mentioned that on occasion, me and my sister, when we were growing up, we often had the same dreams. Now, we would dream of the same location that we didn't know really existed in reality. This is a common thing where we would be Googling something and an image would pop up, and one of us would be like, "I had a dream about this place and I didn't know it was real." And then the other would say, "No way, I also had a dream about this place and also thought it wasn't real." And this sort of dream crossover with my sister was a common occurrence. But we had shared one time this same horrifying, vivid nightmare when we were children. And it's really interesting because neither of us had really talked about this nightmare until later. And then we realized that we had the same exact nightmare. But what's really bizarre about this nightmare is that it was the same until both of us separated within the nightmare. And then our nightmares took two different courses because we were doing two different things, which is really interesting to me. So essentially, what was happening was in our nightmare, we were being chased by someone, and we were in this like old horror movie, gothic style, like castle of some kind, some sort of stony giant building. And we were being hunted down by this person. And me and my sister were running away and trying to hide together. And at one point in the nightmare, we got separated. And in my nightmare, I ran a different direction and I tried to run down a specific kind of hallway. I came into a room that was a dead end. I tried to hide. Unfortunately, I was hunted down and then I woke up because they came into the room. And my sister's nightmare, from what I remember, she ran the opposite direction and she did get away and she did hide, and the thing did not come for her. So that's what's really bizarre to me is that we shared the same exact dream leading up until the moment where they diverged. And the thing in my dream came for me, but did not go for my sister. And that is exactly what happened in both of our respective dreams. So this is something that like I said, I've only experienced with family. And it wasn't until I had this dream with my partner that I was like, oh my gosh, I can I can share dreams with people outside of my family. Like I never had that kind of experience before. Now, I have had, dreams where my spirit team will actually come through my dreams, whether they're guides, whether they're divine, whether they're my ancestors. And these dreams typically stand out as feeling really important. Like it's something I have to remember. It's something that has like weight to it, that has like this energetic charge. And when I have this dream communication with my spirit team, it's the kind of feeling where it's like when I wake up and it's got that energetic charge. This is the only way I could describe it is it's kind of like a feeling that you have when someone you love tells you a really deep, meaningful secret that's really important to you, and you keep it close and you keep it safe, and you know that it's something you need to hold on to and keep it present. That's kind of what I know that sounds really interesting and weird, I'm sure, but that's kind of what it feels like when I have a dream where my spirit team comes through. And it's really funny because with dreams like that, sometimes during the dream, I'm aware that whatever message is happening in the dream is really important and that I need to remember it. And sometimes I wake up not realizing until I'm dream journaling and I'm writing down what the dream meant that I'm like, whoa, this actually feels energetically charged. Like as I'm writing about it, the feelings that it brings out in me is like really intense. Like it's not like just writing like I had a dream where Star Trek TNG Picard was in a little sailor boy costume. That is a real dream I had. That is like stereotypical dream. So like I'll give you an example of a basic dream for me versus like my one of my spirit team guides literally came through and told me something very important. So let's use this Star Trek one as a reference. So one time I had a dream where it was like I was watching an episode of Star Trek TNG Next Generation, and Picard and the crew had a alien who they had on the ship who was dressed in old-timey like Renaissance-y kind of clothes, and they only spoke Old English, like Shakespearean English. And no one on the deck knew how to communicate with this alien who spoke ye old English. And Picard was like, "Don't worry, crew, I've got the solution." And he goes into the other room, and when he comes back, it is the actor's head, like on a child's body, and the outfit that they are wearing is a little blue lacy sailor boy outfit, and he's holding like a lollipop, and he's speaking in ye old English to this alien who speaks old English. That's a typical like that's just a really random dream. Uh, it's one of those things where I'm like, I don't even know what my subconscious was trying to tell me with that. I'm sure I could figure it out if I actually sat down and did some journaling on it. But honestly, it's just one of my favorite, like, really silly dreams to tell people now because it's so stereotypical dream, right? That's more of like the stereotypical dream where it's like, it doesn't make sense. It's really random. It's kind of all over the place. It's obviously I was watching TNG at the time, so it was on my brain. And so my brain was just projecting back at me, like, I don't know, here's a show that you've been watching. Try this. Versus, there was one time where I had a dream where one of my spirit teams came through, one of my guides came through to deliver a message. And in this dream, I was in a beat up car with someone that I was acquaintances with. I had gone on a really amazing, important trip with this person as part of like a group thing at one point in my life, and they were driving this old beat up car. And we were driving on this road that was literally in this vast open nothingness on the road. There was nothing on this road. It was just like a dirt path. And there was like a single tree on this path. And there was a puddle in the road. And I told them just to drive through it because I was like, well, it can't be that deep. And then when, of course, they try to drive through it and the car sinks to the bottom of this puddle like it's a small like pond. And we're completely submerged. And I'm panicking. But then suddenly this person that I knew, this acquaintance that I knew in my dream, grabs me by the shoulders, turns me to look at them, and then they tell me something extremely important. Like, obviously, I'm not going to share the details of what exactly I said, but they told me something that was extremely important and extremely on point with things that were happening currently in my life. And they told it to me very seriously and very much in a way that it's like, this is important for you to know. Like when someone sits you down and is trying to tell you, like, here is what you need to do, don't forget it. And I woke up with this feeling still reverberating within me of, I need to remember to do this thing. I need to remember to write this down. I need to remember. And it was really bizarrely accurate how much the words that they said to me were exactly what I needed for what I was going through. And so that's what I mean by like, you can see how there's a difference, right? Even this dream with this person felt like it was starting off like a basic kind of dream where it's like, oh, my subconscious is trying to give me messages by showing me a road, showing me a pond. Like, I could definitely pull a lot of subconscious messages from those things. But the fact that this person turns to me and told me this very, very, very important thing was amazing. And that was the magical moment of the dream that was very different. Now, recently, I had a dream in which the majority of it was very clearly like my subconscious presenting symbolic imagery to help me process things. Except for there was one part of the dream where I was in a stressful situation and I was trying to hold a door closed from an outside force. I was trying to get in. And it was the door was rattling, the door was shaking. I was barely keeping it closed. And then this random person walks up to me as I'm desperately trying to keep this door closed in my dream and tells me point blank, super blunt, like as if the energy that they had was like somebody eating popcorn, thinking this was very entertaining. They walked up and so casually just was watching me hold this door and said, in most dreams, this thing that's coming after you would usually represent a different kind of your subconscious that would actually mean da 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 da. And they were analyzing my dream in my dream and just point blank told me this. And I just looked at them so confused and I was like, why aren't you helping me? I didn't even become conscious or lucid to the fact that I was dreaming. I was still just like in shock that this random person in my home walked up to me and was like, "Hey, did you know that this is what this means in a dream?" And I'm like, "You're not helping." And then when I woke up, I was like, "Oh, oh wait. I guess hindsight 2020, that's a little helpful." But this interaction absolutely has the flavor of I I don't know if it was actually my spirit team coming through to assist me. If it was a spirit who was extremely nonchalant. It was a spirit who was very much like couldn't care less attitude. But it really had the feeling of someone who was just passing by through my dreamscape and just like made an offhanded comment before they like went off to the next dream. Like that is what it felt like. It literally felt like someone just kind of passing through and making a comment and almost like critiquing my dream, which was like rude. I have never had that happen before. And this just happened like I want to say like a week or two ago. So, but that's kind of what it's like when communicating with my spirit team, when communicating with people who are currently alive and existing in our reality. But I have had it happen a few times of communicating with someone who has passed. So, and again, just like when I'm communicating with spirits or entities or living people in my dreams, it has a different flavor. It has a different vibe than just a typical dream that feels kind of muddy and mushy and weird. So, for me personally, I often know that I'm communicating with a person who has passed in my dreams because for some reason, they always, and when I say always, I mean every single time I've communicated with someone who has passed, it is the same thing. They always seem to be in a bright, glowing, white, misty atmosphere. It's really interesting. It's not like my other dreams where if I'm dream journeying, it's vivid. If I'm having a typical dream, like I said, it's very like muddy and changeable. But when it's somebody visiting me who has passed from the other side, it's just a bright, misty space. It's not like a room. It's not like a specific outside atmosphere. No, it's just like very stereotypical, like Hollywood. uh, okay, yeah, I'm gonna say disclaimer right here. Um, I do not like J.K. Rowling. I do not agree with J.K. Rowling. I absolutely am That, anyways, I'm not going to get into it, but I needed to say this disclaimer because I'm going to reference Harry Potter because it's the only one that I can think of currently. So if you've ever seen the Harry Potter movies, spoiler, there is a part where Harry dies. And when he dies and I'm talking about the movie specifically because this is the visual, he finds himself at the train station. And the train station is bright white and it's almost kind of foggy or misty, and only certain key pieces of the environment are in reality. Like you can see them, and everything else just is kind of fades away into the fog and is non-existent. That's what it's like for me. And I should clarify that the experience that I first had like this was way before the Harry Potter movie even came out. So it's not like my subconscious was pulling on that. It was just like weird coincidence. When I saw the Harry Potter movie, I was like, that's weird because that is what it's like for me. But again, screw J.K. Rowling. So yeah, it's always this kind of like really white, bright, glowy, misty atmosphere. And the first time that I had this experience was when um gosh, it was probably about when I was 18, maybe a little younger. Oh, probably, yeah. But my dog had passed away. And when I say my dog, like it was the dog that I was extremely close to. And her name was Lucy. She had one eye. She was part beagle, part basset hound, and I loved her to pieces. She was the first dog that I really got close to. Like we had a lot of dogs growing up, a lot of beagles growing up, but this was like my dog. Like I loved her so much. And when she passed away, I was the grief stayed with me for like a long time because I had a lot of guilt in the fact that at the time when she had passed, I was first it was I was finishing high school and I was really stressed about not graduating. And then on top of that, I started going to community college and I was extremely swamped with that and figuring out what I was doing. So I was always out of the house and I was also trying to find ways to not be home often because being home was not safe for me. And so she ended up being alone a lot in her last like couple years of life. And I carried that guilt with me for quite some time. And so about a year or so after she had passed, I was still feeling this immense guilt over not spending more time with her. And I remember one night I had this dream. I was in this misty atmosphere. And from the bright, misty atmosphere, Lucy, my dog, walks up to me. And I'm just so happy to see her. And it's funny because I wouldn't say that I'm like lucid when this happens, but it's almost like I know that I'm not dreaming. I know that I'm actually having this moment. So it doesn't quite have the same feeling as being lucid. It's just sort of like, yeah, I'm here. I'm in this space, existing in this space. And so she walked up to me, and at the time I was not doing pet communication. But like looking back now as a pet communicator, as I'm talking about this, that it's pretty much exactly what happened. She communicated with me in this white space that she had come to visit me to spend that time with me so I wouldn't carry the guilt, so I wouldn't carry that burden of beating myself up over not getting that last playtime with her. And so in this dream space, we played. We played tug of war, we played hide and seek, all of our favorite things that we used to do when she was still around. And then I remember giving her a hug and scratching her ears like I always used to do and patting her butt. And then she got up and she walked back into the mist, and I woke up crying. And that meant so, 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 so much to me. And after I had that experience with her, the guilt was gone because when she was walking away, again, as a pet communicator, I'm like, oh, I can see how this was pet communication because I wasn't hearing words. It was like the vibe, the energy, the feeling, the emotion. It was like this sense of relief and this like sort of like, don't worry about it. Don't beat yourself up about it. It's okay. You're okay. I'm okay. And it really, really, really hit me really deeply. And I've never forgotten it. It's just been so vivid. Like it's not like a usual dream where when you wake up, you have a hard time trying to recall it. Maybe it's a little fuzzy around the edges. Maybe some parts are clear and other parts are not. No, this for me, it was always 100% clear. And it's always stuck with me. And that was the first time that had ever happened to me. And there was a part of me, because at the time I wasn't a practicing witch. I did not reclaim the title of witch. I did not consider myself psychic, even though I had all these experiences that would say otherwise. But I was very much in my denial phase at that point in my life. And so there was a part of me that was like, that was a really lovely dream. And I'm glad that I experienced this. Except I had it happen again many years later. And this next time I had a visitation from a spirit who had passed, it was my father. So, to start, before I get into the story, I do need to clarify that I did not have a good relationship with my father. He was my abuser. And so, when he passed, it just so happened to line up that I was actually just about to start my advanced mediumship classes. And so, I had this weird feeling because my dad was the my dad was the type of person. He's the like Italian New Yorker. Why don't you call? You never call. You never this. You never that. Even though you just called like a couple days ago. You called last week, and it's you never call. I'm so alone, and you never, it's the guilt tripping of like you should talk to me more. And so when he had passed, and I was about to start this advancing mediumship class at the same time, I went, oh no. Oh, no, 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 no. I know exactly what he's going to try to do. He's going to try to come through this mediumship class and he's going to try to communicate with me. And I don't want to talk to him. I don't want to talk to him. I don't want to process right now. I could not with him, especially because when he had passed, like obviously we weren't on good terms like ever, but right before he passed, we had like a not so great communication. So I psychically and energetically put up a shield and a boundary. And I made it very, very clear you are not to interact with me during the class. I do not want to talk to you. I'm not comfortable. This is my boundary. I do not consent to you talking to me at this moment because I am not ready for that. We can't have this conversation right now. And it worked. But I did have a lot of people in the class, whenever they tried to practice mediumship with me, there would always be like call waiting. It's the only way to describe it, where it was like he was on the line trying to get through and couldn't. They couldn't hear him. Had a sense of him, but any other spirit, it was very easy, but not him. And so it was around this time that I had another one of these dreams where it was this bright white mist, this bright energy room. Except for this time, there was almost like a crowd of people walking through this space in this like whatever bright room, whatever you want to call it, afterlife room, this environment. It was almost like a subway station of some kind. Like people were just passing through, which to me makes sense because I was really getting into doing mediumship. And so I was very open to communicating with spirits. So it was like they were very busy and like in my space, which is probably not the best, hindsight 2020. But in this crowd of people walking around, I remember seeing my father, and it was like he was trying to get through the crowd to get to me, like as if he was shouting and waving, trying to call me over to talk to me, but I couldn't hear him. And I saw him and I just looked at him and said, no, we are not doing this. I already told you we are not having this conversation right now. I cannot talk to you right now. You cannot come to me in my dreams like this either. You can't come to the class. You can't come to my dreams. We're not talking. And then I woke up. And it was, again, it was that same exact environment and atmosphere. And it really blew my mind because I, up until that point, had never had another dream of someone who had passed. This time a person, like someone who was a living person who had passed instead of my pet. And so I was really shocked to see it was that same kind of environment. I was like, oh, that must really mean something then. So as the class continued on, um, I started to loosen up with my boundaries, and I finally said, I put the intention out there and I brought down those energetic boundaries and I said, okay, I give consent to allow my father's spirit to come through for communication only if XYZ circumstances are met. Because as you know, if you've listened to my podcast, it does not matter if the person is living or deceased. You are allowed to set boundaries with people. You are allowed to tell them, I consent to this. I do not consent to this. I am comfortable with this. I'm not comfortable with this. And that's totally okay. Anybody who says otherwise, um, I have very strong opinions about this as someone who comes from a household of abuse. So, period. And so I had finally said, okay, under these circumstances and conditions, my father's spirit is allowed to come through and communicate. And immediately he started coming through every single class session to the point where I had to tell him, okay, another condition is you can't come in every single class because like give other people a chance to come through. And it worked out. And then I had another dream and I was in this misty space again. And this time in the misty space, like how I was saying, how it's like sometimes there are bits and pieces of an environment, but it kind of fades into the fog. This time I was in my father's office that he used to work at. Not like his home office, but his actual office location. And the phone on his desk was ringing. And I went over to the phone and I picked it up, and it was my father on the other end. And he said, I understand that you don't want to talk to me right now, but I was hoping that this would be okay so you don't have to see me, but we can still have a conversation because there is something that I want to tell you. And then he had told me what he needed to say. Again, not going to get too into the personal details here, but again, it was that same environment of this bright, misty, foggy space. I didn't feel like I was dreaming. I felt like I was extremely vivid location, as if I was like really there without the physical sensations. I don't really know how else to describe it. And so, this is definitely something that can happen. Now, is this me saying that every single person who has a dream visitation from someone who has passed is going to experience it like how I do? No, this is just how I experience it. For me, it's the glowing, misty, bright space. For you, it might be something different. And as a matter of fact, we actually have a special listener letter. And this person actually shared their personal experiences with spirit communication in their dreams. And I am so excited to share the first letter of the podcast. So again, this is your reminder. If you would like to send your own personal story for a chance to have it read on the podcast, please send an email to oracleparlorpod@gmail.com. You can find that in the episode description. So Tasha writes, I just finished listening to your dream premonition episode, and I wanted to write in with my experience of spirits appearing in dreams. I've had two that I am pretty sure were spirit encounters. The first dream, I was with my family, mom, sisters, and maternal grandparents, in a very busy food court. We were sitting at a couple of tables, all right next to each other. At one point, my stepdad appeared. He had passed away by the time I had this dream. And I got up and went to a separate table and sat with him. He couldn't talk, but held out his hand for me to take, and we sat in silence holding hands. He got up and left, and I went back to my family. And when I woke up, I knew that the dream felt different. It felt like my stepdad had really joined me for a little bit. The second one, I was with my dad's side of the family. My abuelito was sick and would be dying soon. So the family was going through his things and picking out what they wanted. A little intensive, I think. Lol. He had actually already passed by the time I had this dream. I was walking around the house we were in and found my abuelito standing by himself. It was a similar situation where he could not speak, but we shared a moment together and he offered me a little candy. When I woke up, I again felt like that had actually been my abuelito that had visited me in my dream. I'm very grateful for these experiences and hope they know they can visit me anytime. Thank you, Jenny, for sharing your experiences and incredible guests with us in the Oracle Parlor podcast. It's always a joy to listen to. Thank you, Tasha, for sharing your personal story with the listeners. And this is such a wonderful example. Now, I had not fully read through this letter until this very moment because I wanted to give my immediate response and genuine reaction to reading the letter on the podcast. And I am so shocked and blown away because in your letter, multiple times, you, Tasha, talk about how it felt different. And this is what I've been talking about the whole episode. When you have these experiences where you're having communications with spirits, whether with dream visitors, whether that's spirits or living people or past people or whatever, it just has a different feeling. It has a different vibe to it. And what I really love about Tasha's letter is that it shows you a different example for how the spirit came through in their dreams. Because, like I said, for me, it's always been the white misty space. And that's how I know what I'm experiencing is a spirit communication with someone who has passed. And then in Tasha's, we see like these really beautiful, genuine, everyday moments where the spirit is there. And I think that's so wonderful because it doesn't matter if the dream has this like ethereal glow or if it's just we're at a food court and there's my family member. The point is that you wake up with this feeling of, oh, that meant something. Oh, that was special. That was different. That was not the norm. And that is what makes this beautiful dream communication a visitation from a loved one. Thank you, everyone, again for joining me here on the podcast. Like always, you can find all the links and the episode description for where to find me. Please, if you haven't done it already, consider leaving a review and rate the podcast. It really, 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 really helps the show. And I so sincerely appreciate Tasha for writing in this letter. Thank you all again. I will see you next time in the Oracle Parlor. Thank you for joining me on this magical, mystical journey within the Oracle Parlor. It has been such a pleasure to have you, and please, if you have questions or a spooky story that you would like to share with the podcast, email oracleparlorpod@gmail.com. If you would like to learn more from me, Fantasma Witch, head over to my Patreon. There are free memberships as well as paid memberships where you can get access to monthly magical workshops, Q&A, behind the scenes, and so much more. Don't forget, you can also book a reading directly with me, whether that's tarot, palm reading, pet communication, or even mystical intuitive consultations. You can find all that and more on my website, phantasmawitch.com. That's FANTASMAWITCH.com. You can also find me on Instagram at Fantasma Witch, as well as TikTok at Fantasma Witch. And if you aren't listening to this on YouTube, you can also find me there at Fantasma Witch. If you enjoyed the podcast, please, please, please make sure you leave a rating, share it with people you know. It really helps out. Thank you again, and I will see you witches in the next episode.